My name is Becki Ferris, and like Dave said, I was homeschooled. I was raised in and around the conservative Christian homeschooling movement. My family is what I would consider to be fundamentalist, or they were fundamentalists, very conservative and all of those things. And I'm going to pause for a second. I didn't prepare that much for this because as I was going to prepare, I constantly found myself overthinking things and feeling like, oh, I don't want to tell them that, they're too young for that, or that's too much, and I just felt like I should try and speak to you guys as candidly as I can, as I am able. I was an actress in the adult entertainment industry for almost 3 years. It has been 4 years since I have shot a scene, so it's been a while. But I, just like everybody else in porn, stumbled into it. It's like becoming a drug addict. No one wakes up and says, I think I'm going to become a drug addict today. I'm going to work really hard. Same with porn. Nobody plans to get into porn. Most people who I know who are in the adult industry, they came to LA because they were going to be an actress, or they came to LA because they were trying to get away from Missouri or wherever it was they came from. And they get to LA and they're full of stars and beautiful things, and they're a pretty girl, and it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And somehow they end up in the valley and they end up shooting porn. And it's always going to be one scene. Everybody's always going to, I'm going to make this much money and then I'm going to leave. Or I'm going to make this much money, and then I'm going to, whatever. And then for whatever reason, it's like a cancer. It either because you've changed your lifestyle now, so you have to keep making this amount of money, or because in some weird way, porn is kind of like a family. There's a lot of broken people, but they're all very accepting and loving of each other, and it's kind of like a gang where you get in and then you're in. To kind of go backwards to how I ended up in porn, I got married really early at 19 to my husband, who's still my husband, and we didn't have a lot of support from either of our families. We just had a rough go of it. We were both at a small Christian college down in San Diego Christian College, and it just was not a positive thing. And so we ended up separating after only a year of marriage. And during that separation, I found an ad on Craigslist of all places, and it was for a production assistant. And so I answered the ad, and then after I got there, it was actually for a gay porn company. And so at first I was like, whoa, I was still very, had just recently not been a virgin. And so I was like, whoa, not just porn, but like gay porn, that's like crazy. Whoa. So I said, no thanks. And 2 weeks later, I was starting to get desperate for a job. This is in late 2007. So the market's crashing, there was no jobs. And so I started working for this small porn company in San Diego. And I worked for them for several years. Things were good. You kind of weirdly get used to things, how they are. It just becomes kind of a weird job that you do, where people are having sex, while you're at work. And basically, the job at that studio came to an end because it was a gay porn place, and they were like, no chicks, just guys. So I needed to go find something else. And so at that point, I had been in and around the industry long enough that somebody was like, why don't you shoot some scenes? Like, you could go up to LA and you could make a little bit of money, and then you could just not. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just do a few. And that's how it always goes. I'm gonna do solo. And then solo, and then I'll do girl. And then I'll do hardcore. And then next thing you know, you're in it. And at the peak, I won awards, I had a publicist, I had an agent, it's a whole big business, and I don't think people realize how involved it really is. So I, I started a couple scenes, became a couple more, then, like I said, then I had an agent, and then, there's a commodity for girls who don't look like they've been having sex since they were 13, and that was who I was. I became the face of the girl next door, the all-American, very sweet, this whole thing, which is actually kind of sick, but, there's a whole market for it. And so I made a lot of money, and that money turned into a cocaine habit, and which is like not something that is uncommon in and around the adult industry. And the thing that I want, before I'm going to pause myself again, the thing that I want to share is not, porn is bad, don't watch porn, okay, they're people. I'm not going to put up some slides of gonorrhea and be like, don't have sex, this is what will happen. Like, that's not, because you know what? The reality is sex is awesome. Sex is great. And if you haven't had it yet, you're in for a huge, exciting experience, because it's awesome, especially, it is, with someone you love and somebody who you are meant to have it with. It's a great thing. But it's not a good thing when it's a commodity. And I can point to various parts of my body and tell you exactly how much they are worth in dollar amounts, because I know, because I've sold them. Let that one go for a second. But that's a reality, and that's what happens when you enter pornography, is you start putting price tags on your body. And it's kind of hard to say out loud. I haven't, this is the first time I'm ever speaking publicly about any of this. When I, I'm gonna Ted Cruz it here. No, Marco Rubio. Well, eerily looking at the camera. So, yeah, I haven't ever spoken about this, and when I do speak to people privately, it's never Christians. It's never Christians. And it's because of shame. By show of hands, and if most of the hands in this room don't go up, I'll know most of you are lying. How many people have watched pornography in here? Even if you just, you didn't masturbate, you just watched it, you didn't inhale. I'm just like, I've got the political jokes today. But, yeah. So most of you, and when you, hold your hand up for a second again. Hold your hands up. Look around, everybody look around at each other. Can someone please name the emotion that they're experiencing by raising their hand? Anybody want to yell out that emotion? Shame! Shame. Shame has been the greatest motivating emotion and aspect of my entire 20s. I was angry and ashamed at my parents and the way I was raised. And that was a huge part of me going into porn. It's the biggest finger you can give to your patriarchal father. Psh, tell me what I can do with my body. Watch what I can do with my body. And then shame about talking about it. Dave basically Dave and I have been friends for a long time. Dave and I have been such good friends that when I was inpatient in a behavioral health unit, Dave pretended to be my pastor so that he could come in and see me after hours and sit and pray with me. Mm-hmm. Dave and I go way back, and we've been through a lot of things. And I couldn't even tell him about what I was doing. And I was living this entirely double life. I lived down in San Diego, I'd drive up to LA. I was very mysterious about modeling, film work. It was all very mysterious, and nobody really knew what I was doing. And so that's how it went for a couple years. And so when I do tell people, it's usually non-Christians who are like, oh, wow, it's a fun thing to talk about at a party. Like, oh, I went snowboarding somewhere. Well, I used to be a porn star. And people are like, whoa, and so it's like a funny thing, and I'm self-deprecating about it, and that's kind of how I get through it, but I never talk to Christians about it. And I don't because I'm ashamed. And I am afraid of judgment. And because I've received some of that judgment. And I think a lot of us in this room have, based on a lot of different things. But there's, sorry, as I'm like collecting my thoughts here. Come back to shame, and I'll go back to my story. So, working in and around the industry, I've been in for a couple months now. You have some experiences. You know, one of the things that as I was preparing and as I was thinking about this talk that I kept remembering is that one of the things that people say about porn is, you know, it's not, people have asked me several times if there are trafficked girls in porn. Now, I was in and around porn for many years. I never met anybody who was sexually trafficked that I know of. I never met anybody who was being forced to do anything. But the thing is, so your agent books you for all these jobs. Well, all these girls, most of them are from the Midwest or somewhere else like that. They come to LA with all these dreams and all these hopes. And then they become dependent on this money. And so, you know, you have the final say in every scene that you do. Well, say every girl has a hill they're gonna die on. For me, my hill was anal. I wasn't gonna do it, I wasn't into it, it was weird, I wasn't gonna do that. And that's like, that for me was, I'm not doing that. Every girl has one of those. Some start with them one way and then move them further. And the thing about that is, certain acts, if you hold on to them, if you become famous enough in porn, you can sell them for even more money. So let's say you don't want to do a scene with multiple partners. Well, you hang on to that, and then once you're a more famous porn star, you can sell that for big money. Well, your agent, who gets 10 or 15%, depending on who your agent is, will book you for scenes. He calls you up, he says, hey, Brooke, that was my name at porn. Brooke, I've got a scene for you with 3 guys. Oh, I don't do scenes with multiple males. Yeah, you do. No, I don't want to do that scene. Okay, well, we won't book you until you do. Let us know when you're willing to do that. Well, for me, I, was a little bit savvier, and I was a little older, and so I was like, screw you, I'll call OSHA and bring it down on your head. But when you're an 18, 19-year-old girl from Missouri, you don't know that. And there's a name for sex that you don't want to have, and that's called rape. And whether someone is holding you down and forcing you to have sex, or someone is making you because you can't pay your rent if you don't, it doesn't feel any better. I can't tell you, and I don't mean this in a like, can you go check on him? If he needs me, I'll just...
We'll work it out.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I have a baby. Not from porn, from my husband. I know who his father is, for sure. You know, I have seen countless girls cry through scenes and not be able to get through it. And that's how drugs start.
He's just getting changed. He's
Oh, okay. He does hate that.
None of us like it. It's okay.
That's a whole fetish, but let's talk about it. No, but that's how drugs happen, and that's how they happen insidiously. No one plans on doing drugs once they enter the industry, but eventually something happens as far as a scene or a trigger or something, and you have a breakdown on set. And nobody wants to get blackballed in the industry. Nobody wants to be that girl who's difficult to work with or who's crying because she's having to work with multiple partners and she doesn't want to. Nobody wants to be tagged that girl. So there, you know, have a little bump, smoke a little weed, do what you need to do and just get through the scene. Well, once you once you've done that once, then you realize, well, that was a lot easier to get through that. That was a lot less painful. That was a lot less whatever. So you do it again, and you do it again. I was telling Andrew, the chevron that's right across, I'm staying in the Holiday Inn, the chevron of that is directly across on the 5. I lived in San Diego, and everybody works in the Valley. That was the chevron that I stopped to do my drugs. That's where, which I think is somehow ironic and sort of fortuitous that I'm across from it, with my baby. And that's where I would stop because I could do, cocaine there, and I was calmed down enough by the time I got to my scene to be chill and do my scene. And that's what you do to get through it, and that's what you do to make it okay, because it's not okay. It's like, I think that probably it's a lot like porn addiction. The first couple times you do it, you feel really guilty, you put the laptop away, you delete your history, you do all the things. Then it's a little easier the next time, and then it's a little weirder, the things you're clicking on, and it's a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And then next thing you know, you have debt, or you have, this wasn't me, but you have a BMW that you have to pay for. It becomes this lifestyle that you have to continue to uphold. So my porn story, I was trying to decide how much of this I was going to share, and I feel like I'll just share it. Jeez, you want all. So there was, at the time that I was in the industry, sorry guys, I'm like, I've never left my baby with anybody, so I'm like, and obviously he's super far away, so I really need to be concerned. But so at the time that I was in the industry, there was something called AIM tests, and everybody got an AIM test every 28 days. And you had your ID, and it was, it's this like protocol when you come on set. You find out the talent you're working with, you show him your test, he shows you your test, blah, 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 and you go, and they test for 3 things, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and HIV. Well, that doesn't cover herpes or syphilis or a slew of other things that you can get. But at the time that I was in the industry, there was a problem with people faking their tests, and there was an HIV outbreak. So that scared me, and that made me upset. And so I took a little break, and I stepped back from the industry for a few weeks, I guess it was, and my agent called me and let me know that he had an opportunity for me, and the opportunity was to go be the escort of the Prince for a week, and it was a very, very large sum of money. And I was doing a lot of drugs at this point, and I was drinking heavily, and I decided that this was a super good idea for my life. And so I went. I was supposed to be there for 5 days, and a strange turn of events that to this day is still kind of a mystery to me. I was, like I said, drinking a lot. I got over there, and he took a real shine to me, and he asked me to stay there with him, and I told him no. It was Christmas time, and I had to get back home before Christmas because I didn't want to tell my parents that I was in being a hooker, and so I didn't want to share that with them. So I told him no, and I don't think the prince has ever been told no by anybody before, and so he got really mad, and he kidnapped me, and I stayed there for a little over 2 weeks, and the things that happened while I was there have left physical and emotional scars on my body that I will never get rid of. And in some ways I don't know exactly how I lived through it, but you do. And then I came home, and I was understandably a little tweaked in the head. And so I did more cocaine and more drugs because that seems like a really good idea, and did more drinking. And by that point, I knew I wanted to leave the industry, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I just kept going to LA and kept shooting scenes until one day I overdosed on cocaine. I was up in LA working, in porn they have model houses. And so if you live somewhere else, you come and stay in like a model dormitory basically, and they pretty much imprison you. You have to check in and out. Your agent has to know where you are at all times. You're not allowed to do things. You're not allowed to eat certain things. It's not okay. So I was at the model house. I was up there, I think it was 5 days that I didn't sleep, and just went on a bender. And I was headed to, the driver came and picked me up for my scene, and in porn, everybody has these suitcases. You'll see, if you ever walk around in the valley and you see like a, fairly attractive woman carrying a suitcase, she's probably in porn. You carry all your paraphernalia with you. And so I had been doing a lot of drugs, and I picked up my suitcase and walked down the stairs really fast, and that was when I got my first chest pain. And I got into the car, and the model who was next to me looked at me, and she was like, "You don't look good, like, at all." And I was like, "Yeah, I haven't slept in days." And she's like, "No, like, your face is a weird color." And I pulled out a compact, and my lips were completely blue. I was cyanotic. And that was the beginning of the heart attack that I had. So the driver and the model took me to Kaiser in Van Nuys and proceeded to dump me out of the car because they didn't want to be associated with a drug situation. And so I laid there on the concrete of the Kaiser in Van Nuys, and I realized at that point that my heart was stopping because I couldn't take a deep breath anymore. And man, heart attacks hurt, let me tell you. And I realized that my obituary was going to be something to the effect of like, she had a lot of promise, and then she went into porn and did some drugs and then died alone in the valley by herself. And that's not how I wanted to go out. That's not what I wanted my story to be. And so this nurse came out, and she bent down, she's like, "You have to breathe!" And I was like, this is true story, this is all part of what happened. So I was like, I can't, like, universal sign for heart attack. She's like, "You're having a panic attack, you have to breathe!" And I was like, I can't breathe. And she's like, "You can't breathe!" And I was like, "Yeah," like, so they took me in, and, they hooked me up to the monitor, and I looked, and it was like, my heart was just racing so high. I like, when you run and you can feel it beating in your head, but like a million. And I looked at the doctor and I said, "Am I gonna die?" And he said, "I hope not." And I thought, me either, And so I passed out for a while, and when I came back, they had given me a combination of things. The problem was at the time they couldn't give me epi because I'd had too much cocaine. So I was either going to explode my heart, or we were gonna see if it could withstand the cocaine that I had done. And so thankfully it did. And after years of rebuilding it, my heart is almost completely new. You can't even hardly see where the damage was at this point. And that's the thing to be thankful for. But I almost died alone in Van Nuys at a Kaiser. And that's, as I woke up, I just knew I didn't want that to be my story. You know, I didn't want that to be the way I went out. And so I went home and I checked into rehab. And then I went through about a year of cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, change-based, evidence-based therapy. And I went 3 and sometimes 4 times a week, half day, to a outpatient behavioral health facility, and it changed my life. It helped me to think correctly. It helped me to think healthfully. And trying to figure out where I'm going with this. And now everything's cool, so don't watch porn. No, but no, as I have stepped away from the adult industry, I come away with a couple things. One, I have been asked by multiple people if I could go back and do it all over again, would I not be in porn? Would I not do those things? And the thing is, I would skip the heart attack, but everything else I would still experience. Because it made me a different person, and it made me compassionate and kind and loving to people that I never would have met. The smartest women I have ever met in my life are hookers and whores. All of them. And you know what? This is something a lot of people don't know about the adult industry. Most women don't live in LA. Most women have a family somewhere back in Ohio or Missouri, and they come and they spend 2 or 3 weeks out here, make a chunk of change, and take it back to their families. Most of the women in porn have children, and they do it for their children. And I can't fault women for doing that. I can't be angry at women who are doing the best they can with the means that they have. I fault an industry for allowing it to happen. Rape happens all the time. On set, it happens all the time. And it's not called rape. It's just the director being like, hey, I want to talk to you about something over here in this kitchen. And it just happens because you're there to have sex anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what you do with your body. You don't care. You're already paid, you at some point get so desensitized to what regular sex is like that you get back with your husband years later, and it takes a long time to be able to have normal sex again. And you have to stop in the middle of sex all the time because he's like, you're pretending and you're being like that, so I don't want to have sex right now. And that's hard. But that's what it took to get my marriage back. And it was worth fighting for. And it's especially worth fighting for now that I have this little child. But in porn, the way it goes, you show up on set, you get into makeup, you do pretty girls, which are the solo stills, then you do sex stills, and while you're doing sex stills, you have like a conversation of like, this is how the scene's gonna go, we're gonna do this position this long, we're gonna do this position, so you kind of block the scene. Then you shoot the pickup, which is whatever cheesy intro there is, I'm the pizza man, blah, 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 whatever. And then you shoot sex, and it's blocked into positions and camera angles and this, that, and the other thing, and you start to kind of think about yourself as a piece of meat. You start to think of yourself, you are there to be on display. You are there to give them a good scene. It's not about sex. And that's the thing that I have to say about porn. I don't have to put up a picture of gonorrhea and be like, don't have sex because of gonorrhea. I just have to tell you the truth. I just have to tell you it's not sexy. It's not. It's not sexy. It's not fun. It's a job, and the women who do it because of the money, not because it's fun. I guarantee you, if this goes on the internet, there will be some girl who's like, commenting and will say, no, I'm in porn and I love it. There is a rare breed, but I tend to believe, maybe this is judgmental, I tend to believe the women who love it are so emotionally damaged that there's just not a healthy correlation between regular sex. The other thing that happens is these girls end up in the industry at 18. I went in when I started working around porn when I was younger, but I started shooting when I was like 22, 23. I was 18 for 2 years. 18 is, a thing. It's a category of porn. Teen porn is like a thing. And so these girls end up getting in really young. These girls haven't had regular sex. They don't know what regular sex is like. And so they decide that this is what regular sex is like. For those who have not had sex, touching the inside of a girl's thigh is not, for 3 seconds, is not going to make her writhe an orgasm. That's not how women's bodies work. That's not real. And I think one of the most damaging things about porn is this belief that that's how real sex is, or that's how real sex is supposed to be. The man's supposed to be like, and the girl's supposed to be like, oh my God, oh. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. Most women take a good, long while to get into the swing of things. That's how it's supposed to be. That's what's supposed to happen. And that's good, and that's healthy, and that can be really sexy. But if you watch a lot of porn, and if we're not having conversations like this, your sexual education becomes pornography. And then that's how you think it's going to work with your wife who you've been saving yourself for. So you're saving yourself and masturbating, and then getting to your wedding night. I have heard this from multiple Christian couples. She saved herself, he saved himself, it's gonna be great. He's like, wedding night, yes, this is happening. And he's like, I've been watching porn for 10 years, I have some plans for your body. And she's like, holy crap. I don't want you to put that there. What do you mean? And it happens a lot. And then he's disappointed because she isn't, a crazy sex goddess who he can rub her inner thigh and cause her to have explosive orgasms. And she's like, you're a freaking freak of nature and the things that you want are weird and dirty. And now, not only has there been placed shame before you were together, but now you have put shame on him, and you may have made him feel ashamed of his sexuality and the things that he wants. And she, in turn, has become closed and not interested. And I will tell you, it is very hard to get your vagina to be receptive to a penis if you're closed and you're ashamed. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be wonderful. It's not going to be awesome. It's going to be terrible. And there's going to be bitterness and there's going to be anger. And it doesn't have to be like that. Because you know what? Sex is great. It really is great. It's so fun. It's so awesome. You should definitely do it with the person that you're married to. And I went to a Christian college, so I know how it goes, but it's going to take me a little while. I'm going to drink water. So, yeah, porn and masturbation. So the thing is, I think it starts now. I think it starts with the children that either you don't have yet or will possibly, but I think the conversations start now. I think that sex is something that we should talk about all the time. I was talking with Annalise and Andrew and Dave right before this, and we were talking around the little cafe, Eagle's Nest, and I was saying something about sex, and I immediately whispered, because we're talking about sex. We're kind of quiet. Because sex is apparently not something we're supposed to talk about. That's stupid. That's stupid, because God, according to the doctrine that's going on here, God made it, and he said it was awesome. In fact, he said it was a form of worship. So you should totally be talking about it. Why do we talk about, praise and worship, but we don't talk about sex? God made both. Because it's private, because you cover it with your underwear? Why? I don't understand why. And I don't think it makes any sense. I think it's hurting people to not talk about it. I think it's hurting marriages. I think it's hurting women more than I think it's hurting men. I think men get into a thing. I'm sure somebody is talking about the science of, it's like a dopamine response. You watch it, you have, an episode, you get a dopamine release, and then it's over, and you're embarrassed. Just put it away. But it's over and over and over and continues to reward your brain. Women are the same way, except for we're even more quiet about it. Women absolutely watch porn. Women absolutely masturbate, except for we do it in silent shame. I remember I was masturbating when I was a kid, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I needed to hide it. I knew I needed to not do it. And I would pray all the time that God would help me to stop doing it, even though I had no idea that what I was doing was sexual. I somehow innately knew that it was shameful and bad, and I wasn't supposed to be doing it. Whatever your beliefs are on whether Christians should engage in masturbation or not, we need to stop shaming people's bodies, especially if you're a Christian, because God made your body. If God made your body, you should be super proud of it. The vagina is an awesome thing. You know why? I just had a baby. I've used mine for a lot of things. That was the best thing I've used it for. And I've used it in a variety of ways. So I can speak on this quite plainly. It's a really cool thing. And women should be talking about it. When I got married, I had to go to Planned Parenthood because I did not know basic procedures of sexuality. I didn't know that if you didn't pee before and after sex, you were going to get a UTI. I didn't know how you were supposed to take care of your body. I didn't know any of those things. Why? Why didn't I know that? Because there was shame. Because we weren't supposed to talk about it. Because the amount of times that I got onto set and found out about a sex act that I was going to do that day and I had never heard about it before happened countless times. What's that? Okay, we're gonna, okay, all right, yeah. I didn't know anything about anything. Why don't we talk about that? Why aren't people who are already married talking to young married people about how awesome it is? Why aren't parents talking to their children about sex? Why are we lying and saying like, don't have it, don't talk about it? And then as soon as you're married, you're supposed to be a sex goddess and always want to have sex with your husband all the time? That doesn't make any sense. You can't go from being completely not sexual and, holding the end of a ruler and walking on a pink and blue sidewalk and then be like, yeah, let's have crazy sex all over the place. Like, no, I thought I was chaste and pure and now I'm supposed to be a sex goddess? Like, that's two different messages. And the other thing is, and this isn't Christian culture, this is our culture in general. Guess what? Sex isn't for boys. Sex is for men and sex is for women, and it's for both of them. And this idea that men love sex and women tolerate it is bullshit. And it needs, yes. It's okay. I don't go here. They make me leave.
You're fine.
I would do that. I'll take my baby and leave. So, no, I mean, it's crap. And it's hurting women, and I really think that there are a lot of women out there missing out on sexuality. And I think that there are a lot of Christian marriages where if there was just some communication, if there was just a little bit less shame, if there was just the ability to say, I don't like that, I do like this, or even to figure out what it is you do like, I think people would be a lot happier. There's a reason that the Christian divorce rate is the same as the secular divorce rate. I know that financial reasons are always what people point to in divorce. It's almost always like, well, financial reasons. It's sex. It's always sex. It's always somehow insidiously about sex. Either she doesn't want to have it as much or whatever. And you know what? There are things that happen. When you have a baby, your body does change and it does feel kind of weird for a while. If you're breastfeeding, you're like, it's weird and things change. but I have a partner I can talk to about that. I'm like, I don't want to be on top because I have these big mommy boobies and I don't like how I feel. No. The angle this way is better. You know, there's things, and you should have those conversations. And you should say those things to each other. But if you're not open and honest with your partner, if you don't feel comfortable enough to say, don't lick there, I don't like that. Or please lick here, I do like that. If you can't have those basic conversations, you're not going to have good sex. It's just not going to happen. And I think that shame is where that all starts. I think that for me, what my parents didn't say spoke volumes. You know, what my parents didn't say taught me to be ashamed of myself. You know, I think when we tell our kids pet names, you know, like, oh, you're wee-wee, or you're whatever, it's a penis. It's a penis. You have a vagina. No, I have a vagina. Nothing weird like that. It's not as, no. But you know what I mean? Call it what it is. It's okay to use those names. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in saying vagina. There's not. There's no reason that a Christian can't talk about sex. Right? Is there any reason we shouldn't talk about sex? Especially if you're talking about it in a marital construct or a hopeful marital construct. I'm not talking about, like, sit around and discuss with your dude friends about sex. Like, no. Like, I mean, that probably doesn't happen very often either. But, like, I don't know what guys talk about, obviously. But, no, but, yeah, I'm trying to think here, where am I? While I'm framing, give me some questions. Who has some questions for me that we can continue to, what?
Seth is fine. He's a little cranky and he's tired, but they've got him in a classroom, they're patting him down.
Oh,
Okay, is he,
He's crying.
is he like crying, like upset?
Well, I don't have a kid.
Okay.
Becky, you can take a break.
But he seems okay. I have a little sister. He seems okay.
He is really tired. This is like his bedtime. Well, if he doesn't settle down in a minute,
They're
then,
going to come grab me if he's just totally disgusted.
okay, yeah, if he's really, really upset, then I will, I'll just nurse him in front of all of you guys and it'll be fine.
Why don't you do a Q&A?
Okay, we'll go into Q&A.
We've
Yes,
got maybe
beard.
20
Mine.
minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes, yeah. 20 minutes seems good. Sorry, you had a beard, so I named you beard.
No, I associate myself with the beard.
It's
so
like,
we're
I felt that.
Yeah. So what were the steps that you took in order to get out of the porn industry?
I left the day that I had a heart attack. I went home. My best friend flew into town. She was like, you have to go to rehab. You're a mess. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And on the way to rehab, I called my agent and told him to take my picture down. And I didn't pay some bills for a couple months. And that's what happened. My husband, who I was separated from at the time, he was in Iraq. He's in the Army, or he was in the Army, he's not any longer. And he found out that I was in rehab. We weren't close because we were in the process of getting a divorce. But he called me and he was basically said, I think that you should go to rehab and I'll take care of things for a little while for you. I want you to get better. That's not why I fell back in love with him, but it definitely, having somebody care that much about you will, definitely change things. So I left immediately. I didn't really look back. A lot of girls don't have that option. They don't have anywhere to go. A lot of women are ostracized because their families found out in their porn, so they're not going to get any help from their families. So it was a lot easier for me to leave than it would be the stereotypical girl, especially if she's living in the valley. Because a lot of times, if the agent thinks she's going to run, basically, if she thinks she's going to quit, he's going to somehow talk her into moving into the model house. And if she moves into the model house, you're done, because you can't really move out of there because they either hold your check, which is something that happens all the time, because the checks go to your agent. So let's say you've done a bunch of scenes, but he thinks you're going to leave. He's going to hold your money, and he's going to stipend your money to you no matter how illegal it is and how much it's basically a form of sex slavery. That's what he's going to do if you're a commodity that he wants. If you aren't, then it's easy to get out. But if you're making your intake money, it's hard to get out. It's just cold hard facts. Yeah, yeah.
So that relationship that you had with now your husband, what was that transition like? Like, how did he know what was going on?
He did. He found out what was going on in the worst way possible. He was headed to Iraq the first time. The second time he was in Iraq was when I went into rehab. But the first time he was headed to Iraq, he was sitting in the USO, and a buddy of his sent him a link and said, "Hey dude, is this your ex?"
Wow.
And that was a tough phone call. He called me as he was leaving to go to Iraq and tearfully asked me why I would do that and why I wouldn't ask him for money. And I said, I wanted to. F you, blah, blah, blah. I'm a big girl, I can take care of myself. The thing that really made it rough was it was also a bondage scene, and it was kind of scary, and he was pretty deeply affected by that. We've talked about that a few times in therapy. It's not easy to see your wife in that capacity, I don't think. And I think that's why his first deployment was so rough. Well, I mean, also it was, Iraq in 2008, so that's rough.
Yeah.
But also, knowing that your ex-wife, who you still love, is at home doing bondage porn and doing a lot of cocaine is not an easy thing to deal with while you're over there. So he found out that way. And then we didn't talk for a while, for a good long while. And us getting back together was a lot of things, but we started talking, and we started not stopping talking, and once you start to have those hard conversations, and you realize there's a lot of love left, somehow you forgive each other for things that you did while you were apart. And so my husband forgave me. And that's something that's still hard for me. It's something I still struggle with a lot, is having someone love you in spite and even for the ugly things that you've done. I can't tell you how much I don't feel like I deserve that, and how every day he looks at me and tells me I do. And that kind of love will heal you. It really will. Sorry. Where are those tissues? David. My time of need. Oh, thank you. No, seriously, I don't want to. Seriously, this is a problem that you have. If you do a lot of cocaine, your nose just runs for the rest of your life. So don't do cocaine. Because besides having a heart attack, your nose will run. And it's so annoying. Is my baby okay?
He's fine.
You sure?
They're reading to him, he's quiet.
Okay. His favorite is if they know the Five Little Monkeys song, the Five Little Monkeys. He loves
I
that song.
officially have zephyr snot on my skin.
Well, you're an uncle. So the process of us getting back together kind of happened while I was at rehab and while I was in that intensive outpatient behavioral therapy. We just wrote a lot of letters, and we talked a lot, and we just slowly mended it back together. And then I went to a lot of therapy. We went to a lot of therapy together. Her and then you again. Okay. Yes. Your hair is so pretty. I'm sorry.
I was wondering how it happens that this is your first time speaking publicly about it. You sound like you've had lots of conversations in private, but this is the first platform.
One, nobody's ever asked me to, so I didn't. And two, I probably wouldn't have been ready to talk about it in front of a group even this small. Something happened when Zephyr was born, my son, that made me way stronger. There's something that happens to you when you become a mama. You just feel like you're made of steel. Come at me, life. And so but I have had a lot of conversations, particularly in therapy. I was part of a women's empowerment group that was for women who'd been through sexual trauma, and a lot of the sussing out happened there. And yeah, does that sort of answer?
Yeah. I didn't mean like, why haven't you spoken?
Oh, yeah.
I meant like, was it a big threshold to go from,
Yeah,
this is what I can talk about in private to maybe I'm a public speaker thing?
absolutely. Well, when Dave said something, he sent me a message. He was like, "Hey, pal," I see it does. He goes, "Hey, pal, they're doing this thing, Viola, something about porn, blah blah blah. Like, if you're ready, if you want to." And I immediately shut the email and was super pissed. I was like, I'm like, why would you ask me to do that? Like, you know that it, like, in front of all these Christians, the fragile minds, no! And then I was like, you know what? You know how we don't have more porn stars? We talk to their future parent, or we talk to their parents. We talk to the people who will be having children in a couple years, who will be talking to their children about sex. And we talk about it now so it doesn't keep happening. And, you know, porn is kind of going out of business already with they call them tube sites, you know, it's like, it's all free now. And so it's on, if you are an avid porn watcher, you know what I'm talking about. It used to be you had to go to a CD place, you know, and you have to buy a booth and you had to put your tape in there and you did your business in there in shape. Now you can watch it on your phone, and all of the scenes are, what's it called? Not torrented, pirated. They are pirated from the you know, the places that make them, and so there's not a lot of money in porn. And my deep hope is that porn will stop. It won't stop completely, but it can stop in the way that it is now. It doesn't have to be like this. And it doesn't have to keep being made if people don't keep watching it. And I think that the conversation should happen now, because we're talking about rape culture now. We're talking about women's rights now. We're talking about all of this right now. And so why not make it go away? Why not, or at least diminish it in the capacity that it is? But yes, to come back to your question, it was a huge leap to go from talking privately about stuff to talking publicly. I think that's why I'm a little bit, you'll have to forgive me for being so scattered. I just felt that it would be better if I just let it come out instead of looking at an outline and being like, oh, okay, I need to talk about this and this, because yeah.
We can probably do one more question.
No? One?
2 more questions?
Is he really that bad?
No, he's okay. I mean, he's crying, but he's not desperate. He's cranky. He sang the 5 Little Monkeys song and he calmed down a little bit. So I'm just letting you know.
Well,
if you want to be done, you can be done.
I think there's a lot of, not that like, I'm sorry, this is really important, these people need to ask me some questions about porn. No, but if he's cranky, let's ask a few more questions, and then I'll just grab him. I'm serious. I'm going to breastfeed him in front of you guys. So, and we're just going to keep, if that's cool. If you're not into boobs, I don't believe you because you're in this room. I know that you are. No, so yeah, so can I take like 2 more questions?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to be mindful of you and your...
Yeah, no. Okay, Andrew, I just saw you. Or are you going to pass it to your fiancé? Oh, that's love.
As you know, we're getting married, and Viola has this whole ring by spring thing where everyone gets married.
Okay.
But it's this huge thing. And I think this is such an important conversation to, as we're going into marriage and have our own histories and have both grown up with that culture of like, sex. Can you just speak to even like helpful steps? I know we're looking for helpful steps to understand, like, as we approach marriage, how do we not just fall into that, like, expectation and disappointment and shame and, oh my gosh, like, we are supposed to save ourselves, but in that, you know, there's all this expectation for the wedding night and all that stuff.
One, I would absolutely say don't put pressure on yourself to have sex on your wedding night. Like, don't, if you want to, totally do. But don't feel, you're not obligated to have sex with him, and he's not obligated to have sex with you. This, I know that there's the verse in the Bible, don't keep yourself from each other. That, I personally don't believe that is about physicalness. I think that's about emotional, I don't, you know, so as far as like actual, like, I would start with make out. Like, you know, make out and touch each other. Get, like, take off your clothes and, like, find each other and be respectful of each other's bodies. Like, explore them. They're really cool. And it's gonna feel weird. And it's gonna feel strange because it's like, oh, now we're supposed to do it. But it's also good because you waited. But it's also gonna feel weird. And that's okay. It's okay. And it's also okay if you don't have an orgasm for a while. I had sex all through porn and really did not have a real orgasm that was not masturbatory until much later, because you have to know your partner to be able to have an orgasm with them. A guy's always going to have an orgasm. That's easy. But a girl, it's harder. It's harder for a girl to have an orgasm. It's also hard if you have not explored your own self to know what to tell your partner. So try things, you know, get the Kama Sutra and try the easy ones first. You know, you'll know which ones they are. You know, I would seriously just do what feels comfortable. And if it doesn't feel comfortable, just cuddle naked for a while. And if you are hanging around each other naked, you're gonna have sex eventually. You know, you want to watch Netflix in your underwear on your wedding night. Like, do that. Do a lot of oral too. You know, like it will feel weird at first. It'll feel good, but it'll also feel weird. And you know what? There's a huge aspect of female sexuality, especially in purity culture, where when you're having fun with sex, even when it's your husband, you feel ashamed. That's bullshit. Like, just because it's there doesn't mean you just keep working past it. Keep easing into it. And definitely get some lube. Because I'm serious. Get a good brand of lube. Pure is a good silicone-based lube, and I think they sell it on Amazon. But seriously, lube is a good thing to have because it's just a good thing to have. And, you know, also say, yes, I still have a hard time saying stuff in sex. Like, oh, I get like shy, which is so weird because I'm all over the internet. But I do, I get really shy and I feel weird telling my partner about things. Try and say stuff like that feels good or that doesn't feel good. Start with soft touches, you know, trace, you know, your spine, all of those things, and just don't put pressure on yourself. Just let it happen easily. And yeah.
I just have a,
Yeah.
So when you were kind of relearning like what you call real sex, that's kind of especially what I'm asking about when there is history and there is shame and expectation. Yeah. Like I think that's what I'm particularly interested in is like how do you enter into a good kind of sexual relationship when
You've had a bad one?
Yeah.
That's hard work. It's a lot of hard work. Personally, we started off basically back at the beginning. We started as if we hadn't ever had sex before. The problem that my husband and I would have is I would be performing, you know, I would be auditorily, you know, be verbose, and he'd be like, that's not how you are. So for us, it was a lot of stopping in the middle of sex and having conversations, which can be really awkward, and you can feel like you're being a failure, like, oh, I need to stop, or he needs to stop, and then you feel like weird, and you're like standing there like naked in the middle of things, and you're like having an awkward emotional conversation. You just have to do it. You just have to look at each other, and you have to be honest. And sometimes it's so hard to be honest, especially if you have any shame about anything you've done or he's done or anything like that. It's really hard to be honest about that stuff. you know, I had a hard time. I had a hard time asking for things because I felt like my husband was going to think I was a slut. And I didn't want him to think about me that way, so I would just stay quiet. And then he was wondering if I was having a good time. And then I was more withdrawing. And so you have to stop. And you have to be like, okay, hey, this isn't working. What should we do? Should we do some jumping jacks? Should we, like, what should we do to, like, make this better? And so, you know, we also, I don't know how happy my husband would be about me sharing this, but I'm going to anyway. That's really a lot of our relationship goes. We made a commitment to, it was kind of an experiment, but we made a commitment to have sex with each other every day, no matter what, for 90 days. And I got the idea from a blog, and this is not original. And they did it for a year. We were like, no, let's try 3 months. And one night when I was like wretchedly ill, he was like, let's do this. Like, you know, so we made that commitment to do it, and even when we didn't feel like it, we talked about why we didn't feel like it. Was it because we were tired? Was it because of this? Was it because of that? We learned a lot in that 3 months. We learned a ton. We were also going to marriage counseling at the same time, not because we were having problems, but because, you know, when you've been apart for several years and one of you went to war and the other one was, you know, basically at war in the valley, you have a lot to talk about. And so we talked about everything that came up. You know, for me, I have some real sexual triggers. Like I can't have my face or my hair touched because I will curl into a ball and flip out. I can't. And so you have to have those conversations. You have to have those conversations about why. And no matter how painful it is, you have to be honest. And I think that most of the time, when it's a sexual thing, we know exactly what the thing is. And so whatever that little pressure point is, tearfully naked, talk about it. Does that sort of answer everything a little bit? In the back. Is my baby okay? Do we need to feed him?
Yep, he's fine. He's laughing, bouncing.
Okay.
They're okay.
Okay.
He'll come get me if he.
Okay. Because if he really, because he's probably hungry.
Yeah, he's okay. I don't know what happened, but it happens.
I mean, he's moody. He's his mother's son. Blue, yeah.
Yeah. I think one aspect of Christian purity culture is that we are under the assumption that the more that we talk about sex, the more we'll kind of get ratcheted up to want it, and eventually it'll like push us, like we're talking about sex so much, we're like, just go out and have it at this point. So like, yeah, it's wild. So, like, what would be your response to that, to this here? Like, well, if we talk about sex, then aren't we just going to want to actually have it before we're married?
We talk about abortion all the time. How many people in here have had abortions? We talk about terrorism all the time. I don't think anybody's joined ISIS in this room. You know, I don't think talking about anything. I mean, yes, if you're sitting around heavily breathing, you know, I don't think that is what you're talking about. I mean, I know what you're saying, this idea that, you know, people, the other thing is, that goes straight into rape culture, which is this idea that men are these, like, frenzied animals that can't, like, avert their eyes. Like, guess what? Men are not animals. Guess what? And it's not, this whole, like, men are visual and women are emotional. Bullshit. Bullshit. There's not a woman in this room who will disagree with me that she is looked upon her brother in lust, not her actual brother. idea that men are frenzied beasts, that if they talk about sex, they're just gonna, turn into sharks and, I don't know, go out and, that's stupid. That's not how it works. And there's a difference between talking about sex and having a preoccupation with, I think that a lot, I don't know, I'm not a dude, so I don't know how your brains work exactly, but I imagine that it is similar to, I can have a conversation with you, I can even talk to you about sexual positions, but if I'm not sitting there lusting in my brain, they're two separate things. They're two completely separate things. And I generally think that when we talk about things, especially secrets, it takes away their power. When you talk about things that are painful, it takes away all of that. And then I don't think people are so likely to make mistakes. I don't know. Is that sort of, yeah? Yeah? You, sir.
Thank you.
Hi.
You've shared some really moving and helpful things about the hard work that your husband's done for giving in his life and how transformative that's been. I know you also shared a little bit about how helpful Dave had been too. Could you say a little bit more about how non-romantic friends have helped you in your
Life? Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I want to qualify that by saying a lot of us are friends with each other, and we don't have romantic people to be talking about this with.
So it would make more sense to talk to your friends about it. No, absolutely. I think what I could actually say about that would be helpful, other than the people that you meet here, and I'm sure most of you know this, these are the people that are going to be your friends for a long time. And if you're going to do stupid things in your lifetime, it's probably going to be in your 20s. It's probably going to be around this time that the mistakes of whatever are going to happen. And I think one of the good things about a Christian college, and I think one of the positive things, is that you guys can be accountability buddies. You can be friends to each other through this. You don't get friends who show up pretty much in the middle of the night at a mental hospital to come talk to you without having some deep conversations beforehand. You aren't, you don't just have people, be close to you out of nowhere. These conversations happen before the bad times happen. And I think that, when I read Corinthians 13, I don't ever think about romantic love. I think about the love I have for my friends. That has been demonstrated to me by my friend Dave, my friend Julie, who came out and put my ass in rehab when I needed to. My younger sister Michelle has been just beyond, and has gone down dark roads that I don't think anyone will be able to ever understand. And those conversations happen before the hard times. So I guess, I'm trying to think how I could even frame what you're saying as far as platonic friends. Are you asking more like how to have these conversations with your platonic friends? Like, hey, friend, I want to talk about sex with you because I don't have a person to talk to sex about with, so I think you would be a good person. I don't know.
What you said already has been helpful. If you have a particular story, stories are easy to learn from, fun to learn from. Is there anything you can share?
About a platonic friend helping with a hard time, or a platonic friend helping with the industry?
Hard time.
When Dave found out that I had really done porn, because at first I mitigated it by being like I was in Hustler. I didn't say it was in porn. I just said done some nude posing. Do you remember this?
Surprise!
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, surprise, like I did. He came to my house for a shindig, and I like literally threw the hustler at him. I was like, I'm in hustler. And he was like, and he like, I was going to Viola at this point, and I could tell he was really upset and really scared for me. And he looked at me, and he said, I love you anyway, and I will pray that you don't do this anymore. I don't want you to do this, and I think that this is bad for you, but I love you anyway, and I will love you no matter what. And if you keep doing this, I will still love you, and I will still pray for you. And when he left that day, we hugged or whatever, and he was like, I'm praying for your friend, and I was like, you don't need to, or save your breath, or something to that effect. And he grabbed me, and I like started to walk away, and he grabbed my arm, and he said, there's nothing that you can do that will make me stop loving you and stop praying for your soul. And that's what a good friend does. When your friend is doing something really messed up, that's what a good friend does. They don't shame you. They don't make you feel like crap for doing something you already know is bad for you. They love you anyway. And I think that a huge proponent of shame is judgment. And judgment is crap. And we know that only one person can judge, and it is none of us in this room. And so that's what I would say, is love your friends. Love your friends in spite of and because of the crap that they do. And you know what? You might have a friend who's so good, she'll come back and speak at your college. But yeah. I will come back to you because you've had many questions.
Yeah.
Other beard guy. Next beard guy. You better please no.
You had mentioned earlier something about being in the industry and you were thinking a certain way that wasn't right, and then you were brought to thinking rightly about things. And I was just wondering if you could talk more about what the thinking rightly is.
Particularly what I meant by that is by thinking that what I deserved was to be important because I had done this, that I therefore deserved everything that happened to me in the industry, that I deserved to be attacked by a monster overseas, that I deserved to be a piece of meat. It took a lot of therapy for me to be able to say, that's something I did, that's not who I am. That took literally months of therapy for me to say, because I so deeply felt that everything that happened to me was my fault, that I deserved it, and that it was good that it happened to me because I needed punishment for what I'd done. So when I talk about thinking right, it took literal change-based, cognitive-based therapy to be able to change that way of thinking. You know, I was talking about that women's empowerment group, and we did this exercise one day where we stood across the room. You know, you had a partner, and your partner, it was like basically red light, green light. You know, they would walk towards you, and you'd say, stop. And then, you know, and you would say, okay, come more. Okay, stop. And it was an exercise to practice what it felt like for your boundaries to be respected. And the first time we did the exercise, I was literally on the floor in a pile of tears because I had taught myself and I had taught my brain to be quiet when I did not want to be touched. And so to have somebody, even someone I had been in classes with for weeks, respect my boundaries, it was so transformative and so hard to feel that way that it took me a really long time before I was able to do the exercise with someone as close as you are to me. And that's what I mean about changing my way of thinking. And I should say, not everybody has porn dollars saved up where they can support themselves to go through months and months of therapy. Or the insurance. You know, I was incredibly fortunate to have that experience. But a lot of people obviously don't have that. Anyway, next question. Do you need me to do something, Dave? or
Nope,
you just need
Dave's
to-
asleep.
Oh, he's asleep?
He's asleep.
Oh
They're miracle workers.
my God. I actually feel really bad about that. Why does he go to sleep without me? He doesn't allow me anymore to leave me.
I did have a question though.
Okay.
Can you talk, so you, and I'm in and out, so somebody already asked this, you can be like, shut up.
I might say that anyway.
Probably better. Can you talk, so you said a couple times earlier on, like, you guys are waiting, but a lot of us didn't, or haven't, or aren't,
Yep.
but want to,
Okay.
but we haven't,
Are you ready to claim your like fifth virginity, Dave?
5 times.
But
That was weird.
I'm a virgin again.
No,
no,
what would you say is a healthy response to people who are like, how do I like come back from, because right, so Viola's a tough culture because it's like, for women especially, I don't know why I can get away with it, but for women especially, it's like, well, if you've been with somebody, you're damaged goods, right? If you,
You like us all? We're like black ladies in church. Yes, sir. That is correct. Folks are from the South. I've been. That's how it goes.
I think it'd be really easy in a culture like this. I'm really glad you're talking about it because there is a shame that's being dispersed this week. I think just being here tonight, I'm feeling it. But how do men and women, like, what do they tell themselves in order to like respect themselves and realize they aren't what they did? They can still have healthy relationships. It might take more work, but like,
You know-
what does that look like?
I went through a time period when I was in that almost a year where I was getting help. I'm going to feel weird as soon as I say this, but this is true, so I'm going to share it with you. I went through a time period where I strongly wanted to self-harm my face because I felt like if I wasn't pretty, then bad things wouldn't happen to me anymore. And I just wanted to be as ugly on the outside as I felt on the inside. I wanted there to be some physical reminder of what I had done. And then one day I looked in the mirror, and I would do this every morning. I was very honest with my therapist about it, but I would get up in the morning and I would look in the mirror and I would fantasize about crashing my face into the mirror or doing something drastic to my face. And one morning I looked in the mirror and I didn't want to do that anymore. And I went to therapy as I did, and I told my group that. And my therapist, we kind of went through this, why are you feeling this way? Why does this happen? Blah, blah, blah. And what it basically came down to was we had done a visualization exercise, basically a meditative exercise, and you could do this whether you were praying or you were whatever. And you thought about somebody that you loved, and you thought about them doing something bad. And then you thought about them thinking that you hated them. And the compassion that you have for somebody who you love who's done something wrong. And then you turn that compassion back on yourself. It is very hard to have compassion with ourselves when we've done something that we hate or is bad or is crappy, It's still hard for me. It is still hard for me to forgive myself for things. But beyond forgiveness from God, beyond forgiveness from your significant other, beyond forgiveness, you must forgive yourself. There is nothing anybody in this room, I can guarantee it, has done that is worse than some of the things that I have done. I guarantee it. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, motivational speaker, if I can do it, you can do it. That's not what I mean, but I deeply mean that if you can have compassion and kindness and gentleness towards yourself, you will be able to get over it. And you know what? When you don't forgive yourself for somebody, it's like you're going to, like, let's say you were talking about, a girl, let's say she's had sex with somebody and she feels terrible about it and she hasn't forgiven herself, and then she gets together with a guy and she's like, I just need to tell you I'm a big slut, actually. Like, you've basically given him permission to judge you because you're judging yourself. You're framing it as, I've done something wrong, judge me, I'm a whore. No, you say, I did some stuff with this person and here's what happened. I'm sorry that I didn't save it for you for whatever reason. I'm sorry that happened to me. I'm sorry that I made those choices. But you know what? I don't think that you necessarily need forgiveness from your current partner for having sex with somebody before. If you need to talk about that, but that's between you, yourself, and God. You should tell your partner, but you're not just please love me anyway, even though I have this giant scarlet letter on my face. No. You don't hear guys really doing that. You don't hear guys being like, I know that guys have made sexual poor choices and then have gone to their significant other in shame or whatever, but you have to forgive yourself, and then when you start with forgiving yourself, other people will see. If you go boldly, like, I'm super unhappy about some of the choices that I've made. I don't need to be ashamed in front of any of you. I'm not ashamed of, do I wish I'd made different choices? Yeah, but I didn't, and this is what happened, and this is my life now, and that's okay, and it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to forgive yourself for them.
Thanks.
Don't cry.
Oh, it's okay.
Next question.
Hey, Becky.
In the back. Oh, are we?
We'll just do like one more.
Okay, one more. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm going way over at this point. Okay. Is your question super good? Because this is the last one. No pressure. I'm totally kidding.
I have two little sisters
Okay.
who have gone down the path that I went through. How would you
Down the path.
addiction? And
Okay, yeah.
Addiction to pornography and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. People raise their hands on those. But you mentioned that you have a little sister. Like, how would you advise siblings, whether older or younger, to handle that with their younger or older siblings, to walk through them with that to help them?
That's a tricky one. Be honest. Be honest about the hurt that has caused you. Be honest about, take the things you've learned here and tell them. Talk about it. That's the only way I know to do any good of anything, is to talk about it. I guess if they're still in your parents' home and your parents are very religious or are semi-religious or whatever, that's a tough thing. How young of siblings are we talking here?
One is 16, one's 14.
Okay. Ooh, and they're girls. I tend to think, this is not a popular opinion, I tend to think that watching porn can actually be more detrimental to women than it can be to men, because it tells you how your sexuality is supposed to be, and what is put on in porn is not how it is. Sometimes yes, people do have screaming, crazy orgasms, and they shake their rafters, and it's totally great. Not most of the time. It's not generally how it is, So I think you should start talking about healthy sex and what it looks like, and what someone who loves you and cares about you, how they treat your body, and how they should treat your body, and what that looks like. And you tell them about your hurt. You tell them about how it's affected your life. and you tell them. You tell them about me. You know? You have hard conversations. Probably not in front of your parents.
Good thing is I have 2 parents who are pastors, but they get more upset about our rooms being dirty than our lives being dirty, so.
That's awesome.
That is just-
Cool parents are so envious. I'm like so envious of people's cool parents. Cream, what?
You can do it.
Okay, one more. Because I was like pointing to both of you and you both were like, oh, it's my question, so I want it.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being so honest. You're so brave, and I really admire
Oh, thanks.
you. And I think we've learned so much more than we expected to, and we're so thankful. We are also thankful.
Oh, thank you. Is that, you just wanted to say that?
I do have a question.
Oh, okay. You're like, but also no. No, I do want to thank you so much. It was kind of a lot getting down here just mentally, and so I really appreciate that.
So my question is, how have you been able to feel like your body is yours, and how have you been able to like gain independence of your own body?
Ooh. That was not an easy task. I went through a phase where I wore sweats, like nasty baggy sweats only, and didn't do my hair or makeup because I was like, and like didn't shave anything because I was going through like I need to be ugly. A lot of the things that I did, I learned from the women's empowerment group that I was part of. I stopped making choices about what I wore based on what I thought men would think of it. Whether it was, this is too sexy, this isn't sexy enough, is this cute, how does this make me look? Do I like the color? Does it look good on me, to me? Yes? Okay, cool, I'm gonna wear it. You know, I think modesty culture and purity culture and all of that is crap. I think it's total crap. And I think that choosing what you wear to, even if you're thinking, I don't want to be too sexy to guy, you're dressing for a dude, some random person, and that's not good. So I started with how I dressed a lot. I didn't date for, my husband and I talked for a long time period, and then there was interest in another person, and I took a while off, and I had a break time period where I didn't do anything with anybody. I started to count in my head and to try and basically, I don't know how much you know about mindfulness, but mindfulness meditation. So as I was doing mindfulness meditation, things would come up to me where I would realize I was engaging in a behavior because of the opposite sex, or I was thinking about, had a preoccupation with stuff. So I did a lot of that change-based therapy to change my way of thinking. Physically, I do things even now. My husband will put his arm around me, and I will say, I don't want you to put your arm around me right now, and he respects that. Having a partner who respects you and loves you through that journey was really important for me. It's hard for me now even to say, no, I don't want to have sex, because I feel like I owe it. And if I'm honest with myself, sometimes deep down I still feel like, well, you're a hoe, so you should do this. And it usually doesn't take very long into sex before my husband's like, yeah, you're not into it, or whatever, like, why are we doing this? And we have to have one of those awkward naked conversations. So taking back my body has definitely been a slow process, and it's something that I'm still not completely done with, if that makes